Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Petra Coach's Thought Leadership Workshop Series. Petra Coach is a mind shift business that empowers leaders and their teams to scale their organizations through the facilitation and implementation of the Rockefeller habits. With a wide network of thought leaders and industry experts, these workshops serve as an opportunity for you guys to connect with them personally and ask your most pressing business questions. So today we have John Thompson with us. John brings over 25 years of entrepreneurial and executive experience. He is the founder and chief strategy officer of Blue Margin, a managed data services and Power BI consulting firm, and co-author of The Dashboard Effect. Today, John is going to share how advancements in data technology can help you create a more predictable and profitable business. And this will include methodologies that can quickly help your company become data-driven. How to harness and capitalize on the untapped potential of your data, and how generative AI analytics is the greatest opportunity and risk in the marketplace today. As a reminder, this is an interactive session. We want to hear from you. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a toolbar with a chat button. We encourage you to use that throughout the webinar. And at the very end, we'll save some time to kind of do a Q&A and answer some questions. But go ahead and send those on in. I'm going to pass it off to John, and he will get us started.
Thanks, Leah. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
And you see this big screen right here?
We see it. Perfect.
All right. Hello, everybody. Nice to virtually meet you. As Leah said, I'm John Thompson, one of the founders of Blue Margin. Some relevant background. My brother and I, his name is Brick, as in B-R-I-C-K, founded a company in 2000. It was a data analytics company. And we sold it to One Equity Partners. So we were venture-backed or PE-backed, first venture and then PE-backed executives. We went from 35 people to 500 in less than a year. And my brother Brick here on the left was the CEO. He figures, as we look back, that he spent about 50% of his time gathering and analyzing and reporting information for the board and for ourselves so that we could make sense of this five-ring circus and make it multiplicative in value instead of additive. Fast forward to 2011, after another couple of ventures, we started Blue Margin, and we've worked with about 300 companies, a little over 300 companies, typically in the mid-market. I'll address small market as well. To address that issue of spending most of your time trying to get a handle on what's going on in the business. The problem that we've found is that at the root of every constraint in a business is a lack of information flow. Executives are typically overrun because they spend so much time in meetings and emails and PowerPoints and spreadsheets trying to figure out what's going on before it becomes a serious problem. That's what we're going to address today. Any complex system cannot run sustainably at full speed without good instrumentation. Since that quote doesn't come from a credible source, I'll back it up with Tom DeMarco. He wrote several books, including Peopleware, Productive Projects and Teams. You cannot control what you cannot manage. You can't control something if you can't see it, if you don't have visibility. Because you can't be everywhere at once. You can't, and you shouldn't. This here is an F1 cockpit. This is their dashboard. The annual expenses for an F1 team is $135 million. That is at least since they put a cap on it in 2023. Prior to that, the biggest F1 teams spent $500 million a year just on their expenses, for 2 cars and 2 drivers, and a few other things, including a staff of about 600. You know that they have every piece of information that they need to even drop a single second off their lap time, because there's a lot on the line with F1. Here's the status quo in business today. This is your typical dashboard, your cockpit as an executive. In fact, it's something more like this typically. This is how the average executive drives. Why? Because it's difficult, and that's for 2 reasons. It's hard to corral all your data into one place and make sense of it. and it's hard to change. My message here today is that having good instrumentation is getting rapidly easier, rapidly, and it's accelerating. We started with spreadsheets in business, then we got Tableau and Click and Power BI and Zoho and Yellowfin and on and on and on. Coming up, we'll be pointing GPT, large language models, at our data to tell us whatever we want to know about the company. How much do we actually make in gross profit on each of our products? How much per customer? How long does it take really, actually, to close a deal from the first time we've met with a prospect? What are the similarities in spend and time and anything you can find that causes our customers to leave, and which are most likely to churn next? If we were to merge together cash flow with our bookings and our sales funnel, and if we added in our typical growth rate for the coming seasons, for when the sales funnel tails off, what's our projected cash flow for the rest of the year? And our revenue and our profit? And how does that rank against our competitors? That's where we're heading with data, generative analytics, your own LLM on your computer, which you can do right now, looking at your data and adding in all the data from around the world on the intrawebs to be able to see what's happening. So there's a sea change happening in business where data is becoming the currency of being able to run an organization well. This is from Team of Teams, General Stanley McChrystal. He was the leader of Joint Special Operations Command in the Gulf War. He wrote this book because they were losing in these battles to the Taliban, who had a mesh-like information flow, and they were very quick to respond. The US military was taking information from the field, gathering it up to the top office, to the brass. They would make decisions about that and send it back out, and they were getting killed in the process. So McChrystal said, we need a better information flow. It is the backbone of everything we're doing, and wrote an excellent book about it that I recommend. This, unlike that F1 cockpit with all the spreadsheets and water coolers and so on getting in the way, is what good looks like. You just need a few key numbers in your business, the vitals of your company, to gain oversight and control, and even gain mastery of the business. And it's so much more pleasant. Just to walk you through this very quickly, this is the executive scorecard for a company called CoolSys. They're a commercial services business. And they're looking at three things: P&L reporting, customer experience, and operational excellence. They cheated a bit by having 5 dimensions for each of those categories, but in a couple of minutes, their executive team could see exactly how they were doing, what wasn't working well, what was red or green, and where they needed to focus their attention, and instead of spending all that time just trying to get a sense of what's going on. But the real story for a data-driven business is here down the left side. This is where you have that same quality of instrumentation for every domain in the business. So not just the executives know exactly what their bogey is and how they're doing against getting there and what they need to do to fix it. Everybody in finance and service and install and labor and sales also has that same agency, that same job ownership, that same accountability for what they're after, versus business as usual. And I've been in a few of them, big and small, where you find yourself stuck in a reactive mode, trying to deal with things as they pop up. If you can instead get control, a single heads-up screen, and be able to see daily how you're doing on your key metrics, it changes everything. If I had a lawn mowing company with 6 guys in the field, I would want some kind of dashboard to show me, how are we doing? Are they busy? How profitable are we per client? Do we have any missed appointments? Do we have any non-first time fixes where we had to go back a second time? All of those things are game changing if you can see that well in your company. A couple case studies. The last company I mentioned was CoolSys. This is them. Again, HVAC install and repair. They were $350 million in top line revenue when we met. thousands of installers running around fixing and installing things. And here was their instrumentation. So if you look at that, you can get a quick sense of how are we doing in all the key metrics, how's our utilization, everything that you would need to know. But it's very difficult to analyze that. Without data insight, as the CEO said, you're flying blind, essentially. You are flying blind. We put together their data in one place and did some analysis on the things that really moved the needle for their outcomes. We spent 3 years. They grew to 650 million in that time. They reduced their turnover by 52%. And they did that without having to change any systems, without having to work on their culture. They just needed to give people agency in their work and be able to show them what they were working towards. So call to cash, long days, margin versus plan, EBITDA detail, and probably 30 or 40 other dashboards throughout the organization so they could get a grip on things. Had a huge impact in their outcome, and they sold for a massive profit. Adam Coffey was the CEO of that company. He wrote a book. I'm going to share some resources from him a little bit later. This is another company, Smart Care, commercial kitchen install and maintenance. They had 47 people creating reports, the equivalent of 13 FTEs, gathering and reporting data every single month. They turned that periodic spreadsheet, we helped them do this, into a daily heads-up display to tell them what was running hot and what was not, what dials needed to be turned. And the easiest dial of all they found was simply providing the same kind of heads-up display to every leading role in the company. As they said, no system re-engineering was required, just visibility and awareness. And they increased their utilization 4%. So a $24 million company, they added $1 million to their bottom line simply by giving people good information flow, that team of teams idea. One of those is labor demand forecast up here in the upper left. And I'll share this deck, and I'm happy to talk to anyone after if you want to look at these things in details, no problem. This was a hypothetical that similar to what I gave before about submerging your bookings and your sales funnel and so on to get your forecast of cash. They did the same thing. They smashed together their bookings, their funnel, their seasonal trends. What was the most efficient balance of labor and demand based on their history so that they could take 90 days to hire people and train them and get them ready prior to being behind the 8 ball. They were coordinating labor and demand. It was half of their effort until they got these dashboards. Then they had it automated and they could pick very quickly, oh, we're coming up on June. We need to go ahead and hire some people. We need to furlough some people, whatever the case was. Elgin Fasteners. This is a manufacturer of, well, fasteners for the aerospace industry and other industrials. This was their monthly snapshot of the company. The information they needed to guide all of their biggest decisions was in this spreadsheet. If you've been in manufacturing, it's all about supply chain, inventory, production planning, and how efficiently you can get from order to cash. Talk about your F1 cars of businesses. Once they could see all of that, they increased their productivity 10% just by being able to show the production floor. Here's how we're doing in our calendar of order to cash. Are we green? Are we yellow? Are we red? Just getting the information out there had a massive impact on their bottom line and their productivity. Another logistics pretzel, this is Equilibrium Catalyst. They are, as you might have already guessed, a logistics company. For them, the game was coordinating carriers to ship materials on time at the lowest price possible. And this was the only tool they had to get it done. Tons of data, but you have to analyze it to find the pointers and tell you what to do. And only a few people in the organization had the requisite knowledge to do that. So we gathered their information in one place, began to understand their business model, what outcomes they were looking to change, what leading indicators and KPIs most influence those outcomes. And we put together a set of dashboards. This is one of them. Once they could see it, they could line up all the arrows of this logistical pretzel almost automatically, which cut their costs significantly, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. As a bonus, they recovered $1 million in unbilled services that have been lost in the noise. There is treasure in your data, but the biggest score is in the daily discoveries. It's not the $1 million that was buried. Those happen. Those Easter eggs are there. But when the signal is pulled out from the noise every single day and you have command and control of your business and a heads-up display, it is like breathing oxygen. I have some quotes from our clients. It's like we invented fire is one of them. And we've experienced that ourselves. It gives you that sense of control and that sense of agency that otherwise gets lost in dealing with whatever is flapping around and making the most noise in your office on a given day. So that's the objective here. Why doesn't every company use their data? If it has that kind of impact, they already own it. Why don't they get a daily handle on what's working and what's not? Because we don't see this much. Maybe 5% of companies are really well wired for data. You can't run a company to its full potential without a steady flow of information. It's unlikely that Apple and Amazon and Google or even Nike runs their business on intuition and instinct. Their lights go out in the absence of world-class data, and they are world-class companies. They can see exactly what's happening. That applies right down to the 5-person consulting firm. If you can't see what's happening, you're spending your day, man, I was busy. I dealt with 1,000 things, but none of them were really strategic in advancing the company. All of it felt like I was getting pulled in 6 directions. Executive teams are overwrought with so many initiatives, so many priorities. It just kills them. And really half their time is spent just trying to understand what's going on. You can fix that quickly. The reason that folks don't make this change is because the status quo is to run a business based on spreadsheets. But that status quo is slowly, now more rapidly, disintegrating. And those that are holding on to that status quo are going to stay behind. Those that are being able to leverage data, that's becoming the currency of business. And it's becoming a lot easier to get to much more rapidly. So we'll look at some of the reasons why. This is where things are heading. So this is AI analytics. Did you know, you probably did know this, that you can set up your own large language model, your own GPT on your computer, looking at your material in your business and be able to analyze it the way you would and ask it questions the way you would with GPT. I'm sure most people here have used that. And you can augment that with all the data from the interwebs to understand what's happening in your business. Microsoft and many other companies are doing that. I want to give you just a short video here. Let's see if I can pull that over. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll give you a bit just so you have a sense of where things are going with data analytics. Tell me, Leah, if this is not audible, but let me play this.
Let's take a look at how Copilot and Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm a sales analyst for a hotel and resorts company. Now with Copilot and Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get in.
Oh, we lost your sound. Did you mute?
To gain insights into what is driving return visits to our properties. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, Copilot created a new Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I requested, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends and a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page, but it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as, what are the main drivers for repeat customer visits? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. Right away, I can see that customers who purchase spa visits are the most likely to be repeat visitors, followed by those who rented sports equipment. I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual further to learn more. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back.
Okay, that gives you an idea. I'll spare you the promotional voice any further. That's where things are heading. That's a highly curated demo. We went to the Microsoft Build conference and they had that, and we've been watching it ever since. And there's advancements. It's always striking how quickly GPT has gone from GPT-1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And now Altman is saying that 4 is going to look like the worst tool you ever used a year from now. And we're seeing that happening. So getting your data in one spot and being able to point a large language model at it and then be able to ask it anything. How much are we making per customer? How long do our customers last? What's our customer lifetime value? Where are the biggest points of constraint in our order to cash process? Where are we losing the most money? Where is there margin erosion? You can just dig in and get that and get a dashboard that makes sense, and then essentially decide that that's one of our key dashboards for the company and share it out. So this is where things are going. I don't want to make it too complicated. It can be very simple as well, certainly to get started, just to get to those few key numbers that you trust. Jumping into the technical a little bit, this is the data warehouse. This is the actual diagram that my company, Blue Margin, used prior to July of 23 to explain, here's how simply we're going to set up your data. That was the simplest form we could come up with. There have been big changes in these data platform tools that have made that much, much simpler. This is where things have gone. So in the Azure world, and there's a lot of platforms out there, and by the way, any mainstream business intelligence platform will more than do the trick. It's not so much about the technology, it's more about, are you understanding that the purpose of these dashboards is to render data for a human being to consume, to touch the right nerves, to improve their behavior, their prioritization, their coordination with other parts of the company. That's really what we're after. So the technology behind it doesn't matter too much. We like Microsoft. We don't make a dime of money from Microsoft, but we like them because it integrates with all things Microsoft. So if you're an Office 365 shop, for example, having this familiar same platform, same interface, integrating with your Active Directory and all the people in your business so that you can set that up. We like that a lot. We haven't seen anything that challenges it to our taste, but if you've got a system that you like, stick with that. And it's really about, how do you start simply get some foothold in shifting people to think about the business in terms of the KPIs and the numbers. And then once you've landed, expand with that. So this is the data lakehouse. It's fast. It conforms to a company to meet their value creation plan. That's VCP. It's ideal for agile development. We used to run our business in fixed projects with fixed scopes, and we found that that didn't work well. You had to look 12 weeks out and say, what are we going to need? And to do that, you had to really design a Cadillac to deal with every edge case and corner case you might run into. That was expensive and challenging. It still had a big impact, but we found that there was this ongoing, never-ending tail of iteration that was needed. In our company, for example, we put out a new executive dashboard, and the day it hit the presses, we were saying, that's good, but we really want to see profitability by project, not by client, or whatever the case is. And we have been evolving and iterating that new dashboard that we launched last year virtually every week since. And we find that's true with our clients. Data is not something that you set and forget like some other IT projects might be. It is a living part of the business. It is the backbone. It's the foundation of running any complex organization, and it needs to be constantly kept up to date with how your business changes. So a lakehouse allows you to do that. It also puts the data all in one big spot. So a large language model like a GPT would be able to look at your data and interpret it and not have to go to 6 sources, which would be very, very difficult to do. So that's where things have gone. To take it simpler and more for the small business, you can just direct connect to Power BI or Tableau or Click or whatever system you may use. You can do this with Excel as well, where you have direct feeds into that system. And they've got those pipelines already set up. So if you're in the Power BI or Tableau or any world, they've got hundreds of pipelines. So if you've got QuickBooks, it's about putting in your credentials and kabang, there's all your information in Power BI, and you can start creating reports quickly. So this is just a few days. I mean, really a day, and you can connect to Salesforce, QuickBooks, and begin to analyze your data in a way that is much more impactful, not just for you, but for your company. It's where it's not just a bunch of data that you have to analyze. It's actual information that points you to, here's your problem that's in red, and here's the details you need to fix it. If you wanted to go that route, you can do it yourself. You may not have time for that, but there are a lot of folks out there who can help. There's a few hundred Power BI partners here. I'm pretty sure Leah is going to share this with you guys afterwards, so you'll have this information. You can find a Power BI partner there. If it was me and I had a small business, I would just go right to Upwork. I don't know if you've ever hired someone from there, but it's pretty amazing. You have really tens of thousands of professionals around the world. You can say where you want them to be from, what their skill set is. You see their hourly rate. I mean, a lot of times you're looking at 15 bucks an hour, and someone can build you dashboards. That's a great place. If you're doing a simple approach like this, having a solo operator, a sole practitioner help you to put together some dashboards and connect your data directly to Power BI or whatever system you use, you can get places quickly. If you're a more complex mid-market business, you need something a little more robust. This will start to hit its limits pretty quickly when you get many sources in. There's a lot of refresh and a lot of volume. Without going into the technical details, you can hit a roadblock here before you know it. But you can get there quickly. So it used to be months. Now for us, for a big, complex mid-market company, it's weeks to get from building the lakehouse to creating insights for their people. And if you're a smaller business, in a matter of days or even a day, you can connect your data sources to Power BI and start getting insights almost immediately. That's where things have gone. And again, it's accelerating. It's going to change dramatically. Here's some resources that I think will be helpful, and then I'd love to get some questions. I have a couple other pieces of info. So here's a data survey that we find is extremely useful to send to all of the managers in your company about what piece of information, if they could have it on their desk fresh every day, would be the most helpful. What kind of reports are they using now? How often do they get them? How data-driven do they feel in their work versus reactionary? Some simple questions that give you a very clear sense of, are people starving for information? Are they in that same predicament that Brick and I were in, spending half their time running around between meetings and spreadsheets and emails and PowerPoints, trying to get a handle on their domain in the business? This will give you a clear picture of that. The Dashboard Effect is our book. It's quite well reviewed. We haven't hit the New York Times bestseller yet, but maybe you can help us do that. This really explains the gamification of business. How do you turn your business into a scoreboard? How do you take that motivation that you see on an athletic field when two teams are, let's take the NFL, in any given weekend, you can show the highlights and there's heroics that you can't believe were even possible on any given weekend. The reason for that is because their objective is so concrete that it drives all of their efforts. And you can do that in business. We tend to leave that aspect of human nature at the office door. That's not necessary, and you're missing out on a big opportunity with the data that you already own. It's just a matter of getting it in the right spot and putting it in front of people and having it automatically refresh every day. This link here is to the ungated audio and digital version of that, but my email's at the bottom. If you want to email me, I'm happy to send you a hard copy of the book. Just let me know if you'd like to have it. I'll get it out to you. We have an expert insight series. We do very short podcasts, about 12 minutes. After much debate, we decided that was the most helpful thing. And this talks about all the aspects of running a business that can be improved, all the pitfalls you can get stuck in as you're trying to become more data driven. We've got a lot of podcasts out there, I think 130 or 40, but well indexed, and it's on our website at bluemargin.com, and you can look up things that you want to see about getting on this journey. Additional help, Adam Coffey interview. He was the CEO of CoolSys, has been a PE-backed executive for a number of years. You still see my screen? Everyone good here?
Yes, all good.
Thank you. We interviewed him for our podcast, and he basically his thesis is that a data-driven company sells faster and for higher multiples than one that isn't. He's been wildly successful. I think he's sold 54 companies or done 54 M&A transactions, billions of dollars of exits for PE firms. He gets this process of building a business and making it valuable. I realize some people here are in a small business. It's the same game, just at a different scale. And his simplicity of approach is excellent. I highly advise that. Elgin, I mentioned they were a customer of ours, the Fastener Company. This is a brief webinar we did with them and Microsoft to sort of walk through their journey of going from chaos to data-driven and how much that improved their productivity, in their case, 10%. And then happy to make client introductions to anyone we've worked with. If you want to get a sense of what was it like for you, what worked, what didn't, those sorts of things. If we can ever be of help, this is my not shameless plug. This is Blue Margin. This is most of our team right here. This is all we do, is help to empower companies with their data. And just one more step on that. If you would like to ever chat with us about your data, I'm happy to chat. I don't care what kind of company you are. I would love to lend our perspective, our school of hard knocks, to get you quickly on the road to having a better handle on your business. We typically do a 30-minute intro call. We'll do a scoping workshop to give you a data roadmap, and then we'll do a proposal and we'll engage with folks as needed. As I said, this is the kind of thing we see once companies actually get on this train. Again, their issue is they're too busy to get their data organized. The reason they're so busy is because their data isn't organized. It's sort of a chicken and egg. But if you can start with something small, immediately eyebrows get raised and people say this is like Christmas. It's like we invented fire. You've opened up possibilities for us. I love we can give requirements Friday, get a fully functioning report Monday. I realize this is very much an advertisement, but it's not meant to be. It's just my context, and I want to share with you the kind of feedback that happens from executives when they're finally empowered with visibility and they're not flying blind or navigating their business through the rearview mirror, those sorts of things. It's wonderful for them. Okay, so I know that was quick. I wanted to leave some time for questions. If anyone has any, please let me know. If not, again, I'm around. Please reach out. Happy to send you a book, answer any questions.
All right, guys. If you want to use that chat button at the bottom, I did have a couple questions come in during the presentation if we're ready to roll with those. So the first question was, what would you recommend for teams who have self-proclaimed bad data or not clean data? What is step number one?
Yeah, great question. And by the way, that's all the teams. So every client that we start with, they say, we have gaps in our data. We don't trust the data. We bought a company. They have their own CRM. We have our own CRM. It's a mess. So we're going to go away and get our data straightened out, and then we'll start this journey. The challenge with that approach of getting your data fixed first is that there's not a real strong driver or incentive or motivation to do it. It's just a horrible academic process of trying to make people enter their stuff right into Salesforce so that you can see what does our funnel actually look like. Here's what we found is a phenomenon. If you will put in front of people data, even if it's incomplete and wrong, you don't want to spread it out broadly and say, okay, here's our new source of truth. But you do some user acceptance testing. You show the VP of sales, here's your sales funnel, here's your rate of close, here's your gearing to get prospects from introduction all the way to close, that sort of thing. And it looks terrible. And they say, no, it's not. Or you go to a salesperson and say, it looks like you don't have anything going. No, I got a lot going. Well, it shows a big goose egg here. The fastest way to correct your data is to expose sunlight to it. That creates the incentive. When people know that when you're playing football, there's a scoreboard up there. No one's hiding how the team is doing. And therefore, you get this incredible shared accountability and teamwork. Until you have that visibility, it's a lot of people doing their own thing in silos, hidden away, not intentionally, but just not integrated. So if you can expose that information, even just to a select few, that drives the change needed to improve compliance of putting in data to say, we got to fix that process so this data is correct. That would be my short advice on that, but I know there's details for any given company. So again, happy to talk further.
Awesome. So the next one we had was, what type of business is Blue Margin's core customer? What type, like number of employees, X in revenue, et cetera?
Our core customers, I'll just put up something so it's not blank. Our core customers are mid-market. So we typically work with clients that are 20 million in top line revenue up to ideally 500 million, although we've gone $1 billion plus. So we're not the small business service provider. Earlier in the presentation, I shared that resource for hundreds of Power BI partners. Again, I think the short path, if you're a small business, is to go right to Upwork and say, we're looking for someone who can develop Power BI reports, who can connect our QuickBooks and our Salesforce, even though you could do that in half an hour without knowing anything. But to help you and support you and build out what you need at some very low cost per hour, that's the best place to go. Ours is typically mid-market and very often private equity backed. That just happens to be where we fell. Anything else?
We've got two more here. So it says, for a team who's never heard of Power BI, where would you recommend them start to learn about the conversion process?
Yeah. So Power BI is nice. Again, there's other great tools out there, but you go to powerbi.com or anything Microsoft, or just search in Google for Power BI. You can download it for free. They have a free version. It's not it's free, but now 10 minutes later, you got to pay. You can get pretty far with their free version in a small business. You download it, and then they have videos right there in Microsoft to get you started. So getting started with Power BI. You can also do that with YouTube. And it is really quite drag and drop, sort of a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Easy interface so that you can say, okay, I want to connect to QuickBooks. And it says, here's the connector. What are your credentials? You put them in if you have QuickBooks Online. Next thing you know, your information flows in. So there's a lot of simple videos. Again, if anyone has any specific questions for me about their scenario, please email. I'm happy to send you some pointers that'll get you right to what you need.
All right. This one's kind of a question, kind of a comment. It says, we've actually had some customers try to insert into their contracts that we will not use AI on their data.
Interesting. I wonder if they're saying, don't dump our data into the LLM, the large language models out there, so that, you know, like artists, we're not losing control of our IP. I hadn't heard of that, but I would say this, that everything we've done to date in our business is not large language model. It is the blocking and tackling. It's not, you know, deep learning and machine learning and so on. And how do we find trends and correlations and patterns that no human or spreadsheet could do? Those are great for really big businesses. For your typical business, even up to 500 million top line, you're looking to just understand what happened as of close yesterday just to get a good dashboard with speed and a tachometer and your oil pressure. So I don't see that being an issue. And as we move to this generative analytics, if they had that requirement, you wouldn't want to be pointing that at their data, but certainly on your internal operational data. Again, reach out if you want to discuss further.
All right. And then the last question, do you suggest the integration of our data with external analytics sources to enhance insights?
Depends a lot on what you're trying to achieve, what your industry is, and so on. We certainly do that a lot with clients. In the private equity world, there are large data sets that they subscribe to that give them a benchmark so they can analyze, is our gross margin for this services company in this sector appropriate? How does it stack up against the competition? That would be one of a million examples of ways that you could enhance your understanding of how you're performing based on outside data. But again, that gets into particulars. Yes, the short answer is yes. I think that is extremely helpful. It's amazing the power of a benchmark. You can be going along in your business, hitting it as hard as you can, stretching yourself in creativity to come up with solutions, and end up sort of in an echo chamber that can only get so big. And as soon as you have outside data to give you reference points and handles and perspective on how you're performing, suddenly that drives a whole different set of thinking and resourcefulness to go forward. If you didn't know that you were below 50% performance against competitors in certain categories of your business, it would just be hard to drive to improve it. If you know you're behind, everything changes. It brings somehow the mojo to get it done. So I'm a big believer in that. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, John, and thank you all for joining us today. Please be on the lookout for a recap that's going to be in your inbox within the next 24 hours with all of the notes and materials that were mentioned today, and also a recording that you can share with your teams. If you enjoyed this thought leadership workshop, you can find out information about the next one, Going Through Growth, Are You Change Ready, with Amy Yakowski on May 23rd at petracoach.com/Petra events. Also, stay tuned for our next 60-minute habits workshop on functional accountability charts coming up on June 6th. As a part of Petra's mission to positively impact 10 million human beings, we thank you guys again for being here today and hope you have a great Thursday.
Thanks, Leah. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
You're on.